but I have seen her before.
Okay, I was like,
And
it's familiar. I don't even know where she is, but.
What about you?
Oh, yeah, I'm
Like,
glad
I read it.
Well,
I was really disappointed about
And then somebody didn't want to follow up.
then somebody told me, no, he's in a runoff. I thought he was
This
that
one, this guy with the video.
Yeah, I get confused about which ones is a runoff and which
right,
ones are.
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, that kind of. Okay, everybody, we're gonna get started. We started at UF today and I saw students and faculty and people in person for the first time since fall 2019. It was kind of weird, so.
The traffic is horrible.
Oh, preach. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And the first thing we do have a quorum in person, so our folks online are totally fine. Our first item is agenda review, and I want to see how does the agenda look. Is there a motion to approve or any changes?
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
I do.
All right. Is there any discussion?
I do. We're married.
I like that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we have the minutes from our memorable meeting last month. And is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I would like to make a comment.
Sure.
I think they're more thorough, but, let me look around. Anybody else have a comment?
Okay, well, yeah. Let's see, does anybody else have a comment about the minutes? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so there was that I saw, nothing in there about all the citizens that came, or as they call them, neighbors here, that came to make comment. I think that should be reflected in
It's in
there.
the public comment part on page
Oh, okay.
2. In fact, they're really good notes because I wasn't able to.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Somehow I only read this part. I'm glad you told me.
No, I'm glad. I was going to compliment Ms. Deborah for being able to keep up with the public comment because there was a lot going on.
Well, was that in our email? Because all I got to was this. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, is there a
Maybe I
motion
should've looked
to
at
approve
this.
the minutes?
Move for approval of minutes.
I'll second it.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Hi, friends on Zoom. All right, our first item is our chief's update with the monthly arrest report, and it's great to see you, Chief Scott.
Good afternoon, good evening. Want to bring to you the arrest statistics for the past month, and it goes up to July 22nd. Oh, I'm sorry, July of 2022 is the stats that we're presenting. So next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, we're looking at the number of felony and misdemeanor arrests for adults. The number of felony and misdemeanor arrests, and you see that we had a total of 61 African Americans, males, and 9 black females, 19 white males, and 10 white females. There were a total of 99 felony arrests. Misdemeanor, there were a total of 66. Of those, 29 were black males, 8 were black females, 7 white females, and 20 white males, 2 other males, and 2 other, no other females. When you look at the breakdown, the vast majority of these, 17 of these were for possession of a controlled substance, the felony. So that was either a felony amount or maybe it was with the intent to distribute, but they were felony charges for controlled substance. It could have been something like cocaine, which, you know, just the presence of that or having that is a felony as opposed to marijuana, which you need a certain amount to get to the point where it would be a felony. The next category is the simple battery, and you see that's domestic, and there are 14 of those that occurred, followed by trespass after warning with 13 arrests. Then it goes down to grand theft, 7, and we have murder, which has a total of 7. The breakdown demographically is there for you. The next slide speaks to sworn complaints.
Wait, we have a question on that? Ms. Swan?
Do you know off the top of your head how many separate cases those 7 murders come from? Is they all one-on-one, or there's some?
I believe it's going to be one, but I'm not sure at this point. I think that's going to be from one incident. Let me see. No, I believe it's 2. 2. You know if that's going to be more than 2?
I don't, sorry, I have to check.
Okay. I believe it's 2. But, no, I don't know off the top of my head, it's probably the most
Not that
accurate.
it helps, but I'm glad it's not 7 deaths. You know, I'd rather be
Yeah. No,
That is
we haven't
hanging up
seven,
on
no.
somebody,
Yeah.
7
7
deaths.
Seven people,
perpetrators.
yeah, seven
Yeah.
people were arrested.
Got it.
Next section is dealing with the sworn complaints for adults. You see that that's divided into felony and misdemeanor. There was 63 felony sworn complaints, 72 misdemeanors. Typically, again, the sworn complaints are issued when we can't locate the suspect or we deem that we're going to use a sworn complaint as opposed to a physical arrest. The breakdown on that shows that there, I believe that's 16 black females, 26 black males, 2 white females, and 19 white males for the felonies. And the misdemeanors, you have 32 blacks males and 13 black females. You have 8 white females and 10 white males. When you look at the breakdown as far as the type of crimes, hire, lease, personal property, equipment, with to defraud, you got a total of 12. And they were tied with another 12 for simple battery, domestic, and that was followed by petty theft, retail theft, 12, and then simple battery after that with 11. Those were the leaders for that category of sworn complaints. Again, it may be that they responded to a petty theft or retail theft, and in lieu of arresting a person, did a sworn complaint, and that could very possibly be the reason why they happened that way. Next slide deals with the games of pre-arrest, adult misdemeanor. And we showed that we had 1 black female, 3 white females, 1 white male, and 1 other female were issued the GPAs. The GPA policy, we sent that off to you. You should all have that. We've revised that. We are about to re-implement this, and we're going back to re-educate our folks on how to apply it, how to use this tool that's in their toolbox. So we gave you a copy of the policy so you could see what it was and give a review of it. We're going to be giving this to the officers, but we want to explain to them. We put it into the module that they can read it, but we want to make sure they get a chance to answer any questions and basically really kind of enhance their opportunities to utilize that procedure. Ms. Head will be conducting that training, and she'll be doing that over the next month or so.
Thank you. We have a question?
If the program was suspended, how was it being used?
What we were doing was revising it, and so this has come out, this is the time from the people that knew how to apply it that were using it. But we were rewriting the policy because we didn't think, quite frankly, it was clear enough in the instructions to the folks about what they were doing and how to do it. So we had some people that understood it, we let them continue, but we made some tweaks to it to kind of simplify it. We had all these qualifiers. If you looked at it, was all these qualifiers about how to use. We try to make that simpler. It's these things, you can use it for this, you can't use it for that, and go on. So we're hoping that would increase the utilization of it. The next category deals with the notice to appear. We only issued 1 notice to appear. It was for alcohol possession by a person under 21 years of age. The next slide shows the juvenile arrests. The number of felony and misdemeanor arrests for juveniles in July were 15. 10 were for felonies. 5 were misdemeanors. There were 7 black males, 2 black females arrested, and 1 white male. There were for felonies, and there were 4 black males and 1 black female for misdemeanor charges. The breakdown of those charges are loitering and prowling. There were a total of 4, and that was 4 black males. And you had a grand theft of a firearm. There were 2, 1 black male and 1 black female in that category, followed by burglary felony, 2 incidents in that as well. Everything else is 1. The sworn complaints for felony, misdemeanors, juvenile, total of 8 for felonies, 6 misdemeanors. there were a total of 2 black females and I believe that's 5 black males and 1 white male that were charged under the felonies. The
Yes.
misdemeanors you had, was there a question?
There is a question, but you can.
If someone goes into someone's car or home and gets a firearm, takes a firearm, is that 2 charges? Is that burglary and?
I think we're recording the highest charge, is the way I think that we're doing it. But yes, that person will be charged with burglary and then theft of a firearm. The misdemeanor charge here, misdemeanor charges, you have 3 black males and 3 black females for misdemeanor charges. The breakdown on that, burglary to unoccupied conveyance, you had 3 incidents of that. They were unarmed, so they didn't take a gun or have a gun with them or another weapon. Simple battery, domestic, 2 incidents. Grand theft auto, you had 2 incidents. And tampering with electronic monitoring device, you had 2. The last slide we have here is the juvenile civil citations, and we issued 1 for petty theft. 1 for petty theft. That concludes the arrest. Want to again emphasize to you that we have for you that policy, and I ask that you take time to look at it and give us any feedback you have. We're training on that now. We will train over the next month or so with our folks on that. Any questions that you have for me?
Are there any questions? I recommend the board really take the time to read this as if you were a law enforcement officer and what questions you might have. I mean, just look at it with fresh eyes to see, because I think you're right. Anytime I've written enough policies to know that it's easy to make them more complicated.
Yeah, and I sat down with the group when we first did it and didn't think it was overcomplicated, but when we sat down to review it, a few months later, we looked at it and we want to make it more user-friendly and entice folks to utilize it, so we're taking the time to do that. Just as an aside, before I sit down, is that we're still in the negative for overall crime. Overall crime is down by 2.57%. Violent crime is down by 3.67%. And this is as of August 2nd. So, ideally we would have better numbers than that. I hate to get locked in on the numbers just because they're in the negative doesn't necessarily, I think, put us in a position where we feel like we've reached our goal, because our role really deals also with quality of life issues and making sure our citizens, our neighbors are satisfied with what we're doing and trying to get done in their communities.
Excellent.
Yes,
Ms. Payne,
ma'am.
go ahead.
So, that is going to be at the top. Did you say before that that's going to be at the top of, if they were writing an arrest, there would be an option at the top for the diversion for the GPA, or is
No.
it part of the arrest or not?
We're given the option, we're trying to set it up so that the officers have the option of utilizing it. It's a selection that they can make on the charging, on the document that they can utilize.
So it is part of that.
It's from my understanding that we have that on top of the document that you can elect to make it a GPA. It's like a notice to appear, as opposed to being a notice to appear. It's a GPA, which puts it into the program, the pre-arrest program.
Okay.
So it is an option on that document.
Okay, so the police officer will see it every time.
They'll know that, but again, it's one thing for us to put, we have our policy, we have it set up in a system that you have to check in, read it, and then sometimes they actually test on it. But I think some people learn better when you're standing in front of them and explaining it to them. And so we want to make sure that there's a good opportunity for them to ask any questions they may have. And Ms. Head is definitely interested in trying to increase her workload. She wants more to do, and so she's going to be meeting with the folks on the different shifts. We have 3 different shifts, 3 different overlap days, and we have to come out to all those shifts to make sure they get it.
Is there any tracking of which officers do utilize that program more, or no?
I don't believe Ms. Head has any tracking specific to the officers. We look at the number of citations we have each month, and then we go back. We're going to go to the supervisors, quite frankly, with the officers. We want you to utilize this more. If they meet that criteria that we have laid out in that policy that you have, then we're encouraging the officers to utilize it. Most officers would use something like that as opposed to, if they can, just to avoid the additional paperwork that it takes to, if you have to arrest someone, there's more paperwork and then the trip out to the jail and the whole deal. And so if this is an option that you can utilize, then you'll use it.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Blunt.
What do you think would be the best place to have a test of whether it's being used appropriately? Should the state attorney's office do a few test audits now and then and just see, oh, this should have been a diversion, why was it not diverted? Or what's the best location in the process to do that kind of check?
There's nothing that mandates that the officers utilize it. It's a tool, we say like a tool in your tool belt, that we encourage them to use it. You have a person that's, being cooperative, then this is a minor offense that you can charge them with, and you do that and let them go. I mean, particularly first-time folks, but this isn't limited to first time. It could be someone that's had a previous incident, and the officer elects to utilize it. So it's a tool, but the biggest problem for us is to make sure, as was pointed out by Mr. Johnson previously, not all the officers are educated on it. We have a lot of new officers that come in, we need to make sure they're educated on it. So we want to take that we want to eliminate that reason. And we want to educate our folks on it. This is a tool out there, you can utilize it. So if we see that it's not being utilized, then we have to take a different approach.
It seems like a face-to-face in-service is the best way. Some people ain't gonna study if they ain't on the clock.
Yes. Well, they go into it, they have to read it, and sometimes we test them. The system is set up to actually give you tests on it, but it's better when they can sit there and ask a question, because it may be something very small, and they see the importance when they see that we're actually sending people out to do the training for them and explain to them what we're trying to accomplish there.
Well, at the hospital, we would sometimes have required computer-based modules.
Yes, yes.
And first question a lot of people ask, me included, do I do it on the clock?
Well, our people can do it on the clock. I mean, in fact, it has to be done on the clock.
Okay.
They have to get, anytime they do any work, they have to be compensated for it. Whether it be on or off the clock, it's always on the clock if you're training.
All right, other questions? If not, I'll point out Captain Anthony Ferreira has posted in the chat, and he's pointing out, as Chief Scott has pointed out, the number of crimes identified does not necessarily reflect the actual number of victims involved. And for example, a duo of juveniles captured last night at the 1900 block of Northwest 13th Street admitted to unlawfully entering over 50 vehicles that night. We simply charged them with those crimes where victims came forward or evidence was developed in identifying a victim in the area. This is an ongoing investigation. But that makes sense, right?
I mean, yeah.
How that would show up in the statistics.
Yeah, we wouldn't charge, we wouldn't show 50.
You wouldn't show 50, you'd show you arrested one.
Yeah.
But so that was a particularly good question about the murder, because I thought that does seem kind of high.
Yeah,
but that actually clarifies.
We'd be at DEFCON 5 if that was happening,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Thanks,
questions?
Chief Scott. No, any other questions? No, seeing none. Thank you. All right. So State Attorney Kramer is here to tell us more about the pre-arrest diversion program and the work they're doing in the State Attorney's Office. And I know we appreciate his appearance. So thanks.
Well, I'm here to actually tell you about two things.
Cool.
One, and it's in your packet, is that we have finally completed a very long project, which really came from the fact that every time I appear someplace and speak, what a lot of people ask me is, do you have your diversion policy? And what I discovered when I tried to run that to ground was that because we have so many diversion programs, that some were unwritten, some had been written but we couldn't find them, and some were never written down, and we just had procedures that we followed in the office. So what I took the time to do was to get them all written down and then make sure that what we are doing is actually what's in the policy, and then either change what we're doing to match the policy or change the policy to what we're doing, and then try to go through them and make them all internally consistent. So that took quite a while.
I was going to say, that's a project.
It did take quite a while, and I'm I know that there's probably still issues, but we have finally put that policy, a unified diversion policy, on our website, and you have a copy of it in your materials. And so that includes diversion, deflection, and therapeutic courts. Because there are some therapeutic courts that we are the gatekeepers of that court. So, to try and make sure everybody has a fair opportunity to know and then to understand what the policies are that are being applied to people, that are being applied equally, that type of thing. And there are some things in there that I know people have expressed concerns about, so it's now written in policy that no person can be denied entry or removed from a program because of financial inability to pay the fees and costs associated with the program. And that is now in the policy and applies to every diversion or therapeutic court or deflection that we run. And so we run our intake deflection program, which is the PowerPoint. That's what I'm here to talk to you about, to explain that in detail to you, probably deeper than you want to understand. But also understand that we are running, I would guess, 9 other diversionary programs and therapeutic courts. So all of those are explained in the packet as well, or at least the policies and procedures associated with them are in that packet. And I'm happy to answer questions about any of that. But what my presentation was to be on is actually on our deflection program. So when I say deflection, I'm talking about our pre-arrest diversion program.
Okay.
And that's what the PowerPoint is on. I can,
Yep,
hopefully I can, can it stay on the screen? Because I didn't bring a copy of it.
it's coming back.
Okay.
This is what I already saw.
Yep.
Before
Oh,
we
thank
got
you.
it.
Is that a
Thank you.
spare packet there?
Oh, yeah, we can get you a spare packet. I think we
one
got
in
it. I think we got it.
Oh,
All right, so
Yep,
the first slide is really just some statistics and some history of the program itself. So this program really came out of, and I don't know if y'all will remember, but there was a push on the county commission to decriminalize marijuana. I don't know if y'all would remember that. Mr. Chavone very politely explained to the county commission and subsequently to the city commission that a city commission and a county commission do not have legal authority to decriminalize marijuana. And Mr. Chavone's position at the time was really that if we're going to do something, it shouldn't just be related to marijuana, that there's no reason to focus strictly on marijuana. But if we're going to do something, we're going to do something for all misdemeanor criminal offenses. So he started that idea in 2017, and we started our deflection program in January of 2018. And it is important to note, because it could come up, and certainly talking about the GPA program, that our program predates the statute that authorizes the GPA program. So it's been in existence longer than that. But we started in January of 2018. So I prepared this PowerPoint several months ago because I think we got delayed with some things from last month. And so these statistics are from that time. And so we keep these in our computer. I can pull them at any time anybody asks for them. It's just a push of a button. We've processed in total over 7,700 cases, and we've deflected over 2,100 cases and avoided approximately 1,400 people from having a criminal record. And that's just in the time that we've been doing that. So if we go on to the next slide, and I think this is really something that's important for you all to understand. The difference between the GPA program and the State Attorney's Office intake deflection program is that GPD and GPA, while they are the biggest customer of the State Attorney's Office, they are only one agency that we deal with. We deal with, I tried to count, I want to say it's in the mid-20s of different law enforcement agencies. We have buy-in from our deflection program for all of them. And that our program runs in all 6 counties that constitute the 8th Judicial Circuit. So our people go from who run it, because it's run out of Gainesville, and it's run by a young lady by the name of Ashley Chin. She goes to each of the circuits, meets with each of the offices in every part of the circuit, and meets with those people. And we are putting people in deflection throughout the circuit. So GPA is just one. You are the only folks who have your own program that is providing participants to our program. but it's just one of many agencies. I think that's important to understand. And it did take, it did take us a year to get it spread
I was
to all
gonna
the
say, that
other
probably
counties,
effort.
because we really had to get the procedures down and make sure it was running right before we could tell the other counties, hey, this works and we can make it work for you. So let's move on to the next slide. So one of the things that's important to know, I think that's important for the city to know and for the county to know, is that this program costs the city and the county nothing. It is run through 2 state-funded positions that Mr. Cervone obtained from the Florida legislature. One is for an assistant state attorney and the other is for 1 professional staff. So we have both of those positions are filled, and we have 1 professional staff who does nothing but this program, and one, Ashley Chin, she also prosecutes cases for us, but she handles this, all of the sort of the work of screening for it. Okay. So I want to talk now about how does this actually work. Here's the sort of the weeds of it. All right. So go on. The first thing is that the difference between deflection and diversion comes down to one thing. Did someone make an arrest?
Okay.
Okay? That is the first and only question that is important to us. If there is an arrest, we cannot deflect. We can only divert. Okay? So when this started, Mr. Cervone went to all of the agencies and said, please ask your officers, if they can, to just do a sworn complaint and let us take a look at it and give us the option to do that. GPD's arrests went down by 30% when we did that. And they, to my knowledge, have stayed down by 30%. So what we ask agencies is, if you don't have to, and we do not try to tell an agency when to arrest or when you don't arrest. That is not a prosecutor function, that's a law enforcement function. But if you don't have to, give us the opportunity, because we can always put somebody into the criminal justice system. That's easy. We do it every day. We know how to do it. If you make the arrest, you can't divert. There's no deflection for this person anymore. So the next step is that we get the documents in our office and the person is screened for eligibility, and we're going to talk about eligibility in just a minute. So the most important thing to understand, and this is in the policy as well for all diversion in our office, is that every case is reviewed for both factual and legal sufficiency. So if this is a case that we would not prosecute, we do not offer deflection or diversion, we dismiss the case. And if you pull the numbers, if you ask me for the numbers and you get them, you're going to see a line of cases that it'll say, I forget what it says. It says something like other disposition or something like that. Those are the cases that Ashley has looked at and she'd said, oh, for whatever reason, it's just a no. And so that doesn't get an offer of diversion or deflection. It gets thrown out. And that is true of every case that goes, doesn't matter whether it's getting PTI or what have you, because one of the principles of this, it has to make it work, is if you don't accept this, we are going to prosecute you, right? So we don't want to have a situation that says, we offered you this, you said no, and then we were like, nah,
Yeah.
well, no, we didn't really mean it. So that is an integral part of the process, and that's why we are very insistent that there has to be a lawyer who is a prosecutor involved in the process of making a decision of whether or not someone is going to get deflection or diversion, because that decision counts, and we hold our assistant state attorneys to that.
Mr. Dunkel.
When you say you contact the victim,
Yep.
what is shared with the victim?
We
Is it
explain
shared-
the
is it shared
program.
that,
So
you
we
know,
will
case is dismissed, or
everything. We get the victim on the phone, because every one of our diversion programs, unless I approve it or the chief assistant approves it, and on some cases there may be a lower supervisor who can approve it, if the victim doesn't agree, they don't get into any program. So Ashley gets on the phone with them and says, this is what the program is about. This is what it's for. This is why we have it. And we're asking you if you will agree to it. And also, if the person's owed restitution in county court, with the lower level offenses, we generally do not want to have someone who has a lot of restitution to pay in a diversionary program. It does not work out. We can talk about that at length if you want. So we have to arrange with them to get that restitution paid before the person goes into the program, and to talk to them and say, okay, how much is it? What do you, how should they get it to you? Then when we talk to the defendant, we'll say, look, if you want in the program, you got to pay the restitution ahead of time, or unless it's a felony, and we can talk more about that. But we have to get on the phone, and because under 960, Florida Chapter 960, and Marcy's law, victims' rights have been very, very much expanded, and we have to confer with the victim, and they have a right to be heard as to what the disposition is, and that's really how we effectuate that.
So if a victim says, I'm not interested, what-
The case, if it's a deflection, the case moves on to the line prosecutor.
so the victim has to agree?
They do.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting.
Ms. Payne?
Ms. Payne? Yep.
Okay, so, but if you say if the factuals are not to par, it may be thrown out, then you wouldn't ask the
Victim?
victim because it just isn't a good case for you all. to
Would probably have
prosecute.
already spoken to the victim to make that determination.
Okay, and,
If it's a victim case, it doesn't have to be. It could be, let's say it's a bad search.
yeah.
If we read it and know it's a bad search, we're just going to dismiss it.
Okay, do you wait 90 days or you immediately? Okay,
90 days is the full length of time provided by law for a misdemeanor.
that's what happened to me. Before they said no.
We
this
try
isn't
not to
good.
do that. I'm not saying that we don't miss our time frames from time to time, but 90 days is a long time for a misdemeanor.
Yeah. Lawyer involved in, is that
Ashley?
the person's lawyer or just Ms. Chen?
So Ms. Chen is my lawyer. She works in my
So
office.
they don't have to have a lawyer?
Oh,
to
no.
play. Okay.
The
okay.
vast majority of people who enter diversion or deflection in county court will not have a lawyer.
Okay,
Now, if it's a DUI diversion, then most of those people probably have a lawyer.
Okay.
Most. But the public defender will get people in DUI diversion all the time. So, they may not be paying the full freight for the lawyer.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So then the person is invited to attend a meeting at our office by way of a letter, an email, a text message, a phone call. We reach out. We try very hard to get them to attend. If they miss, we'll give them another date. We work very hard to get them to come in. So let's go on to the next one, because I think there's another slide where I'll talk about what we do at the meeting. So one of the things that has come up in the past is people have said to me, well, people don't know about this. They have to file an application to get into the program. That's not true at all. There is no application to this program. The only thing that has to happen is that the person's not arrested, okay? Because otherwise it can't be, and now is off to another world of diversion. There's no specific documents that are required. There's no magic document that has to come in from the agency. We don't care. They can write it on a cocktail napkin and send it to us. And all that's required is they send it to us. Every misdemeanor case will start with Ashley, and then we'll move from there. If she's not going to move it into deflection, it'll move on from there. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so let's talk about who is eligible. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the answer. All misdemeanor offenses are eligible for the program. We're going to get to a couple of things that are ineligible, and I'll explain to you why. But essentially, if it is a general misdemeanor offense, so this is going to be marijuana, petty theft, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, disorderly intoxication, possession of alcohol by a minor, just the normal misdemeanor stuff, there's none of that's excluded. Let's go on to the next page. What is excluded? All right, obviously, I've emphasized this too much, an arrest. So there is no such, I can't put an arrest in a deflection program. Domestic violence, this is not a domestic violence program. There is a diversion program. It is in your packet that I've given you for domestic violence cases. We have to be exceptionally careful with domestic violence cases, and especially putting people on diversion in domestic violence cases, we have to be very careful with that. So there are some heightened criteria in those circumstances. And then the third is traffic cases. And so in traffic cases, here's the problem. The uniform traffic citation itself is legally an arrest. So when the officer issues a criminal uniform traffic citation, that citation has a number on the top of it that is tracked in Tallahassee, and it goes to the clerk, and those things all have to match so that the state can create a certified traffic record for individuals. So legally, that starts the criminal process, and that is therefore an arrest. So the whole goal of deflection is to avoid the criminal arrest process because of the downstream consequences to offenders who have very limited criminal record. So traffic just is a non-starter. It's essentially, it's an arrest is the easiest way to say it. We have DUI diversion, and I am in the process of working on another diversionary program that we hope to open this fall that will include DWLSR, no valid driver's license, and expired driver's license more than 4 months. I'll be happy to come back and explain it to you. It's a whole nother discussion about how complicated those problems are.
Yeah.
But that we'll save it for another day. But no, it's out there. Let's keep. But I'm happy to answer questions.
Sure, and I would just ask, I mean, that represents a lot of numbers, that last chunk you're putting into a new diversion. I mean, that's just a lot of people get caught up in those,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. There's more traffic cases than there are misdemeanor
Yeah,
cases.
that's what
Yeah, I mean, traffic is huge amount of cases. So what's the criteria for entry? We have already talked about it. Number one is victim consent. Number two is no or minor criminal history. So the point there for deflection is really this. The whole point of deflection is to avoid a criminal history, right? If you already have a criminal history, there isn't really any point of putting that person into deflection. Now, that isn't to say we don't do this. We do. Ashley has the authority with somebody who has a minor criminal history, and especially a criminal history that's old, that maybe is capable of being sealed, that type of thing, to put that person in the program. But what we didn't want to do is really come up with hard lines for her and say, well, if it's X, if it's this, that's a no. Look, this when you see this. You see someone who has a very limited criminal history, very old criminal history, you can give them a chance. But if they've got two prior misdemeanors, there's no point. It's not going to change anything. All right, next slide. So I talked about this already. Victims' crimes, the victim consent, restitution should be paid if any. If anybody has any questions about that any further, we can just go on from that. That's traffic. I covered that earlier. We'll go on to that. Whatever's next. Okay, so how do we get them the notice to participate? We'll send them a letter, a phone call, a text, an email. We try very hard to get them to participate in the program. Okay, go ahead. So we then have this intake session, and so at the intake session, in my last slide, we'll talk about the community partners. But I'll talk about it a little bit now. So what happens is we invite them to the state attorney's office. We actually had the county build us a separate room that is not inside the state attorney's office specifically for this purpose, so that people don't have to be ID'd. When you come into the state attorney's office, it's a restricted area. You have to wear a badge, all that stuff. They don't have to do that. They come in through the back. They go into the room. We have our person there is generally Ashley. She's out with the baby right now, but Ashley gives a PowerPoint, a brief presentation, explains the program to them. But we also have our legal partners there with us, which is there's always somebody from the public defender's office, there's always someone from court services, there's always someone from student legal services, and then the GPA program is also there. And the reason why, number one, obviously, we can't give defendants legal advice. We are the opposition. We are not allowed to tell them what they should or shouldn't do with a criminal case. That would get us in all kinds of trouble with the bar. So that's why Ms. Scott's office is there. They are all given an opportunity to speak with the public defender before they make a decision whether or not to enter the program. Court services is there in case they have questions about how am I going to do public service work, if it's going to require public service work. We do have a disproportionate number of students who are there. Student legal services is usually there. They have their own lawyers. They'll show up. they will talk with their people if they're just available to them. And then, of course, Ms. Head is there for her purposes in her program. And so the program is explained to them. They're given a contract. The contracts are either 4 or 6 months, depending upon whether it's a second-degree misdemeanor or a first-degree misdemeanor. And there's an opportunity to make a charitable donation or to pay or to do community service work hours to cover the financial costs within the program. There is a fee that's in the program that we don't have public service work for, but we also don't ever not let if somebody can't pay it, ultimately we would just waive it, but we don't make people do public service work to pay the state attorney's office cost of prosecution fee, which is, so, and other than that, it's stay out of trouble. And the idea really is this is really designed for people who do not need someone in their life to make them stay on the path of righteousness, right? This is for someone who has simply strayed from the path in a relatively minor way, and who are saying, look, this is an opportunity for you just to not have this follow you for the rest of your life. If this is a person who needs to have a probation officer or somebody who's following them and tracking them, or they're dangerous, or they have some serious condition that we need to be aware of, they're not going to be in this program. So the crimes that you're not going to see in this program, like stalking, we don't put stalking in the program. Why? Because if you're stalking someone, you got issues that go beyond rectifying them yourself, right? So, and that's really what it's about. And if somebody needs that level of supervision in their life, we're going to move them on to something else, to other things. And that's really the whole thing. I guess the only thing I'd say is this is a lot of the work that Ashley does and that Emmanuel, who's our staff member, does is calling people to say, hey, your time's coming to an end. You need to make sure we get your conditions. Do you need more time? Because we have a very high, we're a little disappointed it fell below 90% during COVID completion rate. And we work very, very hard. They work very, very hard to try and make sure that we have an over 90% completion rate with the program, successful completion rate. Because number one, we don't want to send these cases to court, right? This is a case management tool for me. I love that you guys like this program, but remember, I've got 9 prosecutors who do nothing but county court cases, and if we can divert them away, I can focus on the stalkings and the domestic batteries and the DUIs. In county court, those are serious offenses that we have to deal with. So it's not all altruistic. It is really so that we can take the people who don't need that level of intervention with the court system, give them an opportunity to not have this contact with the court system, and let my prosecutors who really don't want to focus on those people, who really are more interested on people who are actually dangerous. They're not really interested. The prosecutors get a little bit of a bad rap these days. They're really not interested. They're all young people, and they're really not interested in ruining people's lives. They are really interested in addressing dangerous behavior. And this really helps them to have a better job experience. Because one of the things I find, because I'm old now and I've been doing this for a very long time, is that the folks that are coming up now, they don't want to prosecute drugs. They don't want to prosecute these status crimes. They don't want to prosecute DWLSR because somebody couldn't pay a traffic ticket, right? They don't want to do that. That's not the generation of people that we have. And these programs really help my office allow people to focus on the most dangerous offenders and the most serious and most complicated cases. Questions?
Questions? Ms. May?
So you have 9 prosecutors, not just this county, is that your whole
Oh,
circuit?
no, I have 45 prosecutors for the
Okay.
entire circuit. I have 9 prosecutors
Here.
in Alachua County who do nothing but county court.
Okay. Let's see.
I actually have 10 if you count the supervisor, because they're all very young. And mostly right out of the University of Florida Law School, and
Right.
they need a lot of help and guidance. So I actually have 10.
It costs Labor Coalition $200 for that data, and we're happy to pay.
Ms. Fox?
Oh, I have a question, the same question I had for Bill Sharon. The time I visited your office, it didn't reflect the population of our county. Staff, it did not reflect the population of Alachua County.
Meaning my staff doesn't?
Yes,
Okay.
it didn't. And I think I visited you maybe 1 or 2 times this year. And I think Bill Sharon, excuse me, they just couldn't find lawyers coming out of college wanting to work for them. So I don't know if that have changed, or have you done any recruiting?
We do recruiting. I will tell you that I don't know for sure how we stack up. I will tell you that you can blame the city of Gainesville because they just hired one of my African-American prosecutors away from me. Zuzuku Dualehi is joining the city. And that is a huge loss to us. And so I don't know how to replace him. I had a Hispanic female who I had made a job offer to, but she turned me down because she took a job with the court. We work very hard to find a diverse population, especially in our prosecutors, because I recognize that those individuals bring a different life experience and a different cultural experience to the office, and the way we prosecute cases, the way we make decisions about cases, is by talking around the office, sitting down with people and saying, hey, this is my situation. And when you have someone else who is from a different culture, who's coming from a different family background, they will bring a different perspective to a case and share that with someone like me who may not have that same perspective. So we value it highly and we recruit, but I will tell you right now, I have a job opening to replace Zoo, and I have no applicants for that position.
And how many blacks do you, African Americans do you have working in your office? I know there's Derry, I don't know.
Well, Derry, James, Rogers, Rich, Ashley Chin. Oh yes, I just hired one of their police officers. They were very upset about it. Don Tanya.
There you go, there's your lunch.
Okay, so you're saying out of the 9, you have 5 from what you just counted?
Oh no, those include
Yeah,
also.
that's what I was thinking.
That's not all. Okay, so James is not. He's
No,
an
you don't have
IT.
to count them, we'll get into that later. But I know it never did, because what is the percentage of African-American cases that come through your office? Is it true that most of them are
Over 50%.
people of color? People of color.
I don't know
That
if it's over
includes
50%.
Hispanics,
It's disproportionately represented for sure. You see that every time the chief talks.
You can see it in this.
You see it every time the chief talks. I mean, I'm getting all those cases. That's fairly consistent throughout the circuit, that African Americans are disproportionately represented in the courtroom, in the prison system, in my office, for sure. Like there's no question about that. Whether it exceeds 50%, I really don't know. I don't.
Okay, well, we have to start somewhere, and I think
Well, that's not
every
difficult
department.
It's not difficult to ascertain that information, although Ms. Payne will tell you it can be expensive.
$200.
Yeah, to get that information. But we can run those kind of searches for you. You know,
okay.
we just, one of the things I think is lost is this. It's like if you were to ask, you know, a fast food company, what is the percentage of people who buy your fast food that are of a particular culture or race? We don't advertise for business, right? We are a prosecution of last resort. We're not the United States Attorney's Office. You want to criticize somebody about something? Go criticize them, because they are very, very selective in the cases that they take. They are not a prosecutor of last resort. We are prosecution of last resort. So I take what anybody gives me and what those person's genders are, what their gender identity is, what their race is. I have no control over it.
I understand that, but from our NACP conference I just attended in Philadelphia last month, they talked about the fact that our state attorney makes some crucial decisions, which is true,
Absolutely.
on who's going to prison and who's not.
True.
And that's why there's such a big percentage of African Americans in prison.
Well,
I mean,
I would
right
say that
now
I
they-
think it's multifactorial. I'd say that that is a factor for sure.
Yeah, I know
That
it
is
is.
a factor, but it is multifactorial in the sense that you cannot you can't make a recommendation to send someone to prison if they are not a case that has been.
Well, I'm just telling you
received
what
by-
our lawyers
Oh,
said.
Absolutely, I don't
And
disagree
they
with you.
also said, and this is really shocking, we actually in 2022 have more African Americans in jail than any time during slavery. So it's a modern day slavery, the way we look at it. There are more African Americans in jail than any time during the slave era.
Right.
And that's very disturbing to me.
Right.
But I won't go there, but my
Let me-
last
Let me respond to
question-
two
okay.
things. Number one, we train on this issue. Number two, we provide inherent bias training, implicit bias training, confirmational bias training to our lawyers. We have scheduled a well-renowned speaker who's coming soon, I think she's coming in January or October, to speak to our lawyers on exactly this issue about inherent bias, because you have to understand the vast majority of our lawyers are not coming from disadvantaged homes. We recognize that. Okay, and then the other thing is that I'm working on a program with the public defender that has gotten me into all kinds of hot water with lots of people to bring data into our plea decision process by trying to get a company that will provide us data metrics from the criminal punishment code score sheet that will tell you essentially, hey, this is the center. If you have this type of defendant, no race or no gender, you have this defendant who has this many prior record points, who has this offense, okay, all that is scored, and that's all out there. The data is out there. No one uses it. So we've asked this company to provide that to us so that I can provide to my prosecutors, if you have this number of points with this crime, here's the middle, okay? Here's the middle in Alachua County, here's the middle in the 8th Judicial Circuit. This is what the middle looks like. If your crime is worse than normal, then you should be somewhere between the high and the middle. And if your crime is not as bad as others, then maybe it should be less. But what I'm trying to focus on to address exactly the issue that you're talking about is to use data to drive sentencing recommendations so that we can be consistent and have parity going before the court, so that someone who, that it reflects what that person's history is equally with every other person who has a history like that. Now, will agree with you and admit to you that the history itself is biased because people come from different backgrounds. If you come from a different background, you may have more points than someone else who's come from another background who does much crime. I can't account for everything. But what I can start to do is to say we are going to try to make decisions that are based on making those plea recommendations that are so important to the courts. We are going to try to make those based upon information that's driven by data instead of just what we've done for the 30 years that I've been doing this. It has not changed at all.
Times have changed and it's
But the
getting
way
worse.
we make plea offers has not changed in 30 years. We make them exactly the same way we did when I started in 1993. And so I'm trying to make at least an incremental change to say we should use data to have a better starting point, because you can't argue with a set of numbers that's being generated by an impartial thing. I'm trying to do my part in the problem that you recognize, right? I can't solve the world's problems, but I can do what I can do.
Okay. Well, I think we had this conversation, I think maybe, I don't know if it was Chief Jones, perhaps, who talked about the diversion program that you had, and he gave us the statistics on the number of African Americans versus others, and we were at the bottom, and the people that was actually in the diversion program were not African Americans. You may have had 2 or 3 out of the 20-something. I think Chief Jones wrote it in our report. So has that changed, and how are you selecting? I mean, you told us this on the paper, how you're doing it, but the kids, young African Americans with misdemeanor and things like that, they are not in this program. And they said the policemen recommend who is, you all remember?
Selected, yeah.
Yeah.
They get the first
They,
tell.
yeah, they do the recommendation. Well, when you look at our police force, most of the officers are white, so more than likely, they're gonna recommend white kids. So we had this discussion, and I didn't think it was fair, and I think Sheila has some comments on it as well, that it was just not, it didn't appear to be fair on who was selected at that time, and it's been this year, I'm almost positive.
I just want to,
where-
can I
where
ask a
the
clarifying
program-
question? Are you talking about the GPA program?
Yes, she
Okay,
is.
because you do understand, I don't run the GPA program.
No, it's it's run through, the program that's run through your office.
Okay,
But the policemen make the recommendations to your office, am I
That's not
correct?
correct.
That they only,
It is
they only do it for the GPD program.
that's
Oh,
not
okay.
correct.
Oh.
It's
And
just for the GPD program.
So do
understand,
you have
this
a
is what
program?
can be very confusing.
Do you have a program of diversion? Well, you just talked about the
I
diversion
should talk about
program.
why. This is why it can be very confusing, and I totally get this, is because the GPA program is a small subset of the cases that we get from GPD. We love the GPA program, but we don't care that someone wasn't selected for the GPA program. We are looking at every
You're still,
sworn complaint
every
that comes
misdemeanor
in.
complaint.
We don't care if they go in the GPA program, fantastic.
So
We love it.
you select the people that would go through your program?
Yes.
We
Based
take
on what
all
you
the GPA program, and we then take every sworn complaint that comes in, and we look at them, and Ashley makes that decision.
And who's Ashley?
Ashley Chen is one of my
Attorney.
African-American employees who runs this program.
Okay, well, we would like to meet with,
Yep,
She
She's
is
on leave right
She
now,
is
right?
absolutely lovely. She is one of the nicest people you will ever want to meet, and it'll be happy to meet with you, but she is on paternity leave, and I think she comes back September 15th.
yeah, we don't, we just want a fair person.
Well,
That looks so,
if you
I'm
meet
not
Ashley-
questioning her.
if you meet Ashley,
credibility
don't
of what
think that
she's
she is
doing, but-
fair.
Okay.
I will be surprised. She is a 30-year-old African-American woman who comes from an African-American culture. And she is a very bright, very smart woman,
We
May-
can certainly
very
invite her
conscious
to
of
Yeah,
the
join us.
issues that you are concerned about.
Yeah, because it's not getting any better for African Americans when they go through your office and the court system. And if anybody have the time, sometimes go and sit in court, if it's open to the public. I used to go maybe once a month, and I would be so depressed when I left, because I'll see an African American person who didn't do half of what a white child did, whose parents had money. It was different as night and day. And from what I can understand, it's still the same. So it's something that we really need to
Yeah, I mean,
focus
I
on.
promise you, if you go to the courtroom, I was in the courtroom today, if you go to the courtroom today, at the courtroom I was sitting in, there was predominantly African-American people who were in the courtroom. There was predominantly African-American defendants. And I will tell you that the one thing that you will hear from predominantly every one of them that comes up is that they don't have a job, or that they don't have a job that pays well.
Yeah, that's from both races, I think.
That's from everybody. Well, I think we have some more questions.
Okay, I'm sorry,
We
I'm
can,
done.
that's okay.
Go ahead,
Mr.
I'm
Johnson?
done.
I agree. There is a disproportionate amount of African Americans in the system, but we also have to acknowledge the high rate of crime that's going on as well now. There's no regard for law enforcement. There's no regard for other citizens that could be hurt in crimes. I spent hours on YouTube, and the body cam footage, the news snips that I see from all over the state, the region, and the country, it's ridiculous. You have people getting shootouts at gas stations in broad daylight. You have people ransacking liquor stores in front of everyday citizens, and people are saying, hey, stop them. And nobody wants to stop them. And they don't care. So in your defense, it's ridiculous. We can't arrest our way out of crime, but at the same time, we have to acknowledge that there's a crime problem. There's a serious crime problem, and it's getting worse as the generations are growing. I'm a part of what some might call the younger generation.
Millennial.
I'm aging out now, but yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely, and it's unfortunate.
I think it was after court, or after this court, I'm sorry, after the meeting, I was talking about this last time. One of the things that I think is important to remember or understand is that the vast majority of the serious crime that's being perpetrated in our communities is being perpetrated by children. Okay? And one of the reasons why it's being perpetrated by children is that the adults who are influencing those children understand that the punishment associated with children committing serious crime
It's less harsh.
is less. The adults understand that. The children are extremely subject to being influenced. And that is a massive problem within our community. And we have tried to address it by essentially using the RICO statute to attack an entire gang that's being run by adults who are influencing underage children to commit serious crime. It's a very hard approach to people. And,
And it's
but
also,
I don't know another way.
well, and it's also the entertainment culture. We have an entire genre of music that's called juror music that is all about murder.
Yeah.
And then after the murder, then you follow up with antagonizing the crew and the family members of the victim, and you make more songs about the murder.
We saw that here after the shooting at the where they had the party out on 6th Street.
American Legion.
After the American Legion shooting, we saw that exactly. We saw the people who were responsible for the shooting, or people who were their associates, were antagonizing the family members of the people who had lost their loved one.
Amazing. You concluded, Mr. Johnson?
I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Blunt, did you have something, or was Ms. Payne? You had something, and then Ms.
Yeah.
Payne. Okay, go ahead.
On the bias trainings you mentioned, implicit bias, explicit bias,
Confirmational bias.
are those things that the state government is about to, the executive
That's what I was
branch of the
gonna
state
ask, but I
government
didn't wanna
is
sound
about to
flippant.
make you stop doing?
Yeah.
No. All right. We've been training on that for a while, and we aren't training. I understand where you're coming
Yeah,
from, because
that's
I know,
considered woke.
number one,
Yeah, no woke. No
I don't think it's woke, but number one, we aren't, that provision has been put on hold by a federal court. Number two, we aren't talking about that kind of stuff. Confirmational bias is a huge problem for prosecutors, okay? If you don't recognize that when you go into a situation expecting to get to a particular result, that you are biased towards that result, you can't do the job. The job is to look at things impartially and consider equally that someone may have committed the offense or they may not have committed the offense. And that you can't go into it thinking they had to have committed the offense, or you will reach that conclusion and you will be wrong, and then you will have a very poor success rate in the courtroom, which makes me very unhappy. And it makes us look very bad in front of the public. So the idea that we wouldn't train on confirmational bias is terrible. The other reason that we train on confirmational bias is it's an incredibly powerful tool in trial for us to win over juries. So we train our lawyers how to use confirmational bias as a weapon to win convictions. I hope that wasn't recorded. But it's true. This is a trial technique. This is, you train trial. I teach at the University of Florida Law School. This is what I teach the students, is how to win a trial. You use confirmational bias to win trials. Now, implicit bias.
Education sphere, not in your office policy.
No, you have, as a prosecutor, you have to separate. You have two roles. You are the minister of justice. You are the gatekeeper of justice. But once that am I going to let you into the criminal justice system process has occurred, and we've put you into the criminal justice system, you're in a different role. Your role is advocate. Your role is seeker of conviction, right? So you have to learn to use confirmational bias in both ways. You have to use it to influence juries to win convictions, which is not breaking the rules. It's just the way jury trials work, right? We get to go first for a reason. Okay? But understanding it and deciding whether to let some case into the criminal justice system is equally important. But implicit bias is much more insidious, and it's much more difficult to train people who look like me, who come from backgrounds like me, to realize that that influences everything you see, you hear, you think, right? Because we're, as lawyers, I don't know how many trial lawyers you know, but we're very difficult people and very hard to convince. So training those people, and I hire people solely because they are difficult. If you are easy to get along with, I am not interested in hiring you, okay? Convincing those people that you need to be conscious of the fact that where you came from, how you were raised, is different than the people that you were trying to, maybe very different than the people you were trying to put into prison, is an important factor that you should be thinking about in what you do and how you regard people. If we did not train on that, it would be very bad.
Well, I hope the governor doesn't get to stop you from doing it.
I don't think he would. I think he would agree that this is incredibly important for all prosecutors. He was a prosecutor. He understands this.
Okay, Ms. Payne, you had some questions or comments?
Yeah, so does the sheriff's office, GPD has the most deflection that they send to you?
They are our biggest customer.
Is the sheriff's office doing anything like that? Since he doesn't meet with anyone, it'd be hard for me to get that information.
Well, okay, I mean, I'm not going to comment on that, but
Yeah.
I will say this, they do send us sworn complaints. We do review them. Don't think that there is any significant difference in the deputy sheriffs, because it's really the line officers who are making these calls.
Right.
And I really don't think there's any measurable difference that we know of between GPD's line officers and the deputy sheriffs in how many cases they would send us as a sworn complaint. I'm not aware of it. Now, do they have a program like what GPD has, where they're very cognizant of it, they're focused on it? No, they don't have that. Not that I'm aware of.
And just one more thing, I brought this up when we met with you in the office. So why is the deflection so low when you were brought 7,700? Is it because they
Because we
don't want to
review
be part?
all of these cases,
Okay.
right? So you got to remember, a large percentage of the people who come into our county court division, Ashley only looks at them for a few seconds because she sees they've got a prior felony. They've got 4 prior misdemeanors for domestic violence. They're out. So we review every case. If it's a sworn complaint, we review it. But she might be able to tell very, very quickly, this person just doesn't qualify. So they don't go into the even potential pile. So you're cutting 60% right off the top.
Like from priors or other
Because of their priors, because of the offense, or we called the victim and they said no, but we review every single one of them. That's the 7,700.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you
guys.
very much.
And if you'll have me back when and if I can get this traffic diversion program coming.
Yeah,
I'll
I'd like
come
to hear
back.
more about that, because I think that's a good strategy.
Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, Mr. Curran.
Just from a distance, I just want to thank the state attorney. This was one of the best presentations I've heard on the details. All the years I've been hearing presentations, I learned a lot of new things tonight, and I really appreciate your attitude to try to put those behind bars, that everyone's better off if they're behind bars, and those who, if they go behind bars, it ruins their life. Let's keep them from going behind bars. And, well done. I just wanted to thank you.
Well, you are most welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So our next item is our closed IA case review. And before the meeting, Chief Inspector Koenig and I looked through them and took a few out that I said, I'm not sure there's much to discuss, but we'll be happy to do that. I think we had a few already identified that we wanted you to definitely begin with and cover. And I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so if it's okay, Ms. Payne identified
Start there, yep.
number 10 and number 12, so we'll start.
Can I ask one
Sure.
basic background question?
Sure.
Some of these are titled Internal Affairs Investigators, some are Blue Team
Oh, that's a
Action.
good question.
So I want to know, what is Blue Team? Probably the people who've been here longer know, so I want to catch up.
No, that's okay. So it's a very common question and a very good one too. So the difference between a blue team action report and an internal affairs investigation report, if somebody called in a complaint maybe to a supervisor on shift, that wouldn't rise to the level of formal discipline. It can be handled in two ways. One is verbal counseling and the other one is a written warning. And it's called corrective action. It's actually in our policy in 26.5. If we didn't get a formal complaint that was signed and someone completed an administrative review form, it will go on a blue team action report. And it gets sent down sometimes to the shift commander, the lieutenant who's responsible for the individual that the complaint's on, or it can come from the lieutenant or sergeant who the individual works for. So it can go in either direction. You know, someone could call IA and say, I don't want to do a formal complaint. These small things happened, and we look at it cursory and we recognize that it wouldn't rise to the level of discipline, so it'll go on the blue team action report. Still documented, still in the system, but it's a way for us to send, things down to the shift, or the shift to send them back to us after they do their investigation. So if we look at number 12, which is one of the two that Ms. Payne asked me to review, with Officer Micah Moniz, the investigator is Lieutenant Marquita Brown. And Lieutenant Brown works on the shift with Officer Moniz and handled the complaint on her level because it didn't rise to the level of discipline. There's verbal counseling, there's some training that goes on, they review policy, but that is what a blue team form looks like, is number 12. And then an internal affairs investigative report is where we get a formal complaint that comes through to internal affairs and is signed, and most all of those usually end up in discipline depending on the disposition of the case or if the officer decides to participate in the ready process. So it's done and treated with the same integrity, but it's just a different way to document it. Is that, Mr. Blunt, any other questions on that? I know it's a little different, but.
Well, another acronym came up, READY.
Ready, yes, sir.
I saw that, REDI, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's in 26.5, and that's actually, if I remember, it's requesting an expedited disposition of an investigation. So if the officer doesn't dispel, and I will give you an example, Mr. Blunt, is I have missed court once in my career, and that is against our policy. So I would go to the Internal Affairs Division and say, I did this, I know I did this, I'm responsible for it, I take full responsibility for it. And it's, instead of them having to go through the entire investigation, I know what I did wrong and I request an expedited disposition of it so it doesn't have to drag on or go a long period of time. And per the policy, you're allowed to do that once you're noticed of the violation, and you have 7 days to do it. And that's in 26.5. So in several cases, when you fully admit and you know you did something wrong, and we all admit we make mistakes, it gives us as officers a way to be able to get through it quicker.
So you're ready to take your licks.
Oh, yes, we are. And we're ready to accept responsibility for our actions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. So, Ms. Payne, did you have questions about 10 and
Yeah.
12, or do you want me to go through the whole case?
I doubt anyone does, especially that long one.
Okay,
That was,
I will.
I just,
Sure.
So I know the officer it was sustained that they did the wrong thing, young officer, blah, blah, blah.
Which case are we talking?
Oh,
And I'm so
10.
sorry. So 10. So this is
Yeah.
a pursuit.
Yeah.
A pursuit
and
violation,
we have
sorry.
had those before, right? And I'm glad that y'all tell them to cut it off, because there was, the sheriff's office did that long pursuit with, but my concern is, see, for me, it's almost always cultural with these. The person didn't have a light on their tag. I couldn't tell you if mine works. So they're pulled over. I mean, there's like speeding, especially now the students are back. And then it's fleeing, resisting arrest without violence. Oof. Possession of firearm, which y'all are always glad to find, but by a felon, possession of cannabis, and a citation for unsafe equipment. I'm not sure I would have been stopped for not having a light on my tag. So the officer is, goes through training, and this person ends up in a crash and has all these charges against them, fleeing, resisting arrest without violence, which I'm going to keep saying is put on almost every arrest. And, they go to jail for a light on their tag. So for me, I don't know if cultural is the right word. This is what I have problems with. And we had the one where the woman ended up in jail for 40 days. Her kids were taken away, and then it wasn't drugs. So for me, it's the same kind of thing, that this person, I feel, is singled out. So it's just a commentary.
Okay. And I think it was pretty straightforward in general about the pursuit issues. I will say for the members of the board, if you have not seen the video of the pursuit yesterday from Alachua County Sheriff, you can find it on Facebook. I know I saw it on the Alachua County Sheriff's. I watched the whole thing, and it's a very long pursuit. And anyway, it was a little scary to watch, because there was a lot going on. It took a long time. Nothing else to say other than it's probably one of the best video shots I've seen of any police thing in a very long time, because it came out easy to follow and understand.
Freed's going to jump right on looking at that.
Yeah.
May already be on YouTube.
It probably is, but anyway, I saw it today and thought it connected me thinking about the pursuit policy, and I think we're fine on the policy, and I think, this person has followed up. The other one you had a question on, Ms. Payne? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dunkel, go
What was
ahead.
the officer's reason for not activating the siren?
I don't remember exactly why he didn't do that, and sometimes it just happens in the heat of the moment. We've got a lot of buttons. I apologize, I don't remember on this case why he didn't. But the most important part about this case and some of the trends that we've seen, because we track these things each year, and what we're doing. And you guys remember the pursuit case that we reviewed when we first joined, it was well over a year ago, where we had 5 officers involved, and there was significant. We actually went through the policy again and looked at what we could tighten on that policy and how we could make it more clear for officers. And then after we did that, Ms. Payne, we had our training division focus a good portion of our training on pursuit. So, meaning our in-service training that everybody has to attend at the agency. And we covered the reasons and why, and went over the new policy and explained, the reasons and what our expectations are. And I can tell you, just from the year that we reviewed that policy with those 5 officers, our pursuits have definitely, and pursuit violations have definitely dropped. So the ones that we have seen recently, which we've seen 2 just recently, those were very young officers with less than a year experience. And we recognize that this is happening, so we've already talked to our training division about giving extra training for the young officers that are coming out. But as we all know, when we're young, when we're new to a profession, you're learning. And this is a definite learning thing. This individual is very forthcoming. And that's the part of how we look at things, is how do we, and on several occasions we've had good conversations where you asked me, Jamie, how do you prevent this from happening again? We look at what we're doing, we evaluate it, we change the policy if necessary, and then we provide training if it's needed in order to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And that's important to us. So it's one small thing, but not a big thing. So
No, what I look at is that another
Yes, ma'am.
person went to jail, and it was over a tail light. That it seems you can always find some reason, including resisting without violence, to charge, so that bothers me.
Yes, ma'am.
When I go out, I'm looking at my tag light.
Okay.
Probably all should double check that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's
Yes,
like we
ma'am.
break. And the other one you had a question on was 12, is that right?
12? Yes.
Yeah. So why is the officer, why is the officer allowed to search the purse in person? Is that to make sure no contraband comes into the,
Your person are, once you're arrested, that's subject to search.
so I think they were, if I remember, they were searched before, they did put her in the car. They said they weren't arresting her, but they did search her. And why wasn't the co-responder unit called? I mean, even when they showed her the video, she kept crying. So why wasn't a co-responder unit? Because it seemed that she was not in good shape.
So that video was shown to her after the incident happened and the investigation was occurring.
Right. But
It wasn't on the scene the day of the incident.
oh, no, I get that.
Yes,
But the officers all said she seemed impaired. She seemed not mentally well, right? That's all the statements they gave.
Sure, and we have co-responders and we have 4 teams, but it doesn't always mean that the co-responder team was working this day or available. They could have been on another call for service. So I don't know that reason, and I could inquire to the officers that worked. But when the lieutenant was going over this particular incident, I know for a fact that that officer or that lieutenant is actually trained in crisis intervention. She's one of our negotiators. She's probably one of the most compassionate and empathetic people. And you could tell she stopped, asked her, do you want to stop looking at this? Because I don't want to continue to upset you. That was in the report. Her intent was not to upset this nice young lady, but to help her navigate to see what happened. Because she might not have remembered, and we realize that and want to give everyone the opportunity to see everything, all the evidence we have, so that she can review it herself.
Oh, no, all that was handled well. My
Yes,
only
ma'am.
question was, all the police officers who were asked said the woman seemed not right, that she was, and that was my only question. You don't have to ask them, I'm just
Okay.
saying.
Yeah,
It seemed like a mental health issue.
It could have been, we never know, right? Mental health, intoxication, it could be from a narcotic, and I understand completely. I wish we have, the opportunity to check into those things, but I could find out for you and ask.
That's all right.
Okay, and we have several others, and I wanted to see if anybody wanted to discuss any of them or have any questions. They're most, in my opinion, they're pretty self-explanatory, but I'm happy to see if anybody would like to discuss any others. All right, seeing none, we will stop there. Our next item on the agenda is public comment. And, sir, did you wish to speak at our meeting,
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll be happy to, I'll tell you what, I'll take that. And we'll go ahead and let you start. And we've got a clock for you if we need it, so we'll give you 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sovereign Despot, holder in due course, King Johnny Bernard at home. And I am talking today, I just want to, because I've been through 20 different cities, and the Blue Campaign, Blue Star, Blue Notice is supposed to be going on. And that's everywhere throughout Florida. So, I understand, all this other stuff is going on, and people can't figure out the families and what's going on. But, when Blue Campaign started in 2012, we should have been already, brushing up with the Blue Campaign and stuff. And, I done made amends and appropriations and stuff to make sure that the budget suits it to where Blue Campaign is taken care of. And stayed in contact, of course, with Homeland Security to make sure that the Blue Campaign is taken care of. Now, since I've been back in Gainesville, the shootings and stuff, there, I haven't seen too much craziness like I saw in Tampa, so it's not too outrageous. But the shootings, like, they got to come to a stop, including the shootings in the schools and all this other stuff. Like in 2012, I told Tampa to go ahead and put metal detectors in front of each door and behind each door. Now they say they're worried about like funding and stuff. Now, you know, I handle the funding because I'm the secured party creditor, positive, and I just write up the amendments, the appropriations to make sure that it gets done. But when we have like still moving along with the old protocol from the old government that was booted out in 2012 as we were brought in with the new government within what's going on today. So, homeless situation. In the United States government manual, it lists everyone that is living in a car, living in a house, paying rent, leasing, not just on the sidewalk, homeless. Now that's what's written within the United States government manual. So when you're dealing with homelessness, you're dealing with all people at the same time. Not just certain, quote unquote, what you want to call citizens, when it's already written in black and white what needs to be done. So, and I was just introducing myself also, because I know like most people who don't know me, most people didn't grow up here. So when I came back, they were kind of, okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here at our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next item is Police Advisory Council comments. Anybody else want to throw in? I'll save mine for last. Yes, Ms. Payne.
Can we have, do you know what's going to be on the, because there was stuff I sent at the beginning, stuff I thought would be important, I don't know if we.
Oh, on the, like, what's next on the big list?
Yeah, so I would like for GPD budget, can we look at that?
We can, and I think they've already passed their budget for this next year, so it should be, no, not yet? Not yet? Okay. First reading, we're still in first reading, but yes, we can get it, because it's not final yet, but we can get it either at the next meeting or the meeting after. I'm out of the loop on when they pass the budget these days, so that probably says everything. But I think it is important to see, and I will just tell you, what I recall, it's a lot of salaries and a lot of equipment.
Well,
Sound right, Lonnie? A lot of equipment, a lot of salaries?
Yeah, I think it'll be finalized today. Right.
Okay.
I sat through 1 year when City of Gainesville, there was like 10 budget meetings.
Yes.
And it seemed like the police stuff, it was hard for me to understand, it took this many times for me to understand the deflection, between deflection and diversion. Excuse me, but there was no like budget. It was like communications or the equipment would be over here in this piece. Under a heading in the City of Gainesville, there was no like, this all goes to GPD. It was kind of spread out in the different communications and equipment. There was no like GPD budget.
GPD is given a budget, it's itemized. It has personnel costs, which are broken down, and then you have operational costs as well. But yeah, it's an itemized budget. It doesn't get into the specificity of we're going to buy so many widgets or anything like that, but it'll show you that this is how much money that they allocate for our biggest cost, quite frankly, is our personnel costs, because we're labor heavy. You know, we provide a service. So our operating cost is probably, you know, maybe $6 million, and the rest of that will be primarily personnel expenses.
We can definitely do that. We can definitely take a look at the budget and see what we can glean from it. I think I would just say where I remember working with city budget stuff, it's almost all labor salaries, but I think it'd be worth taking a good look at from there. Okay. Other comments?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Stacy Scott, is there a way for her to give us a presentation?
Sure. We can invite her as well. I think those are other very good ideas, and we can have her come along and talk about how the role of Public Defender's Office and what she sees. I think
And
that'd be
Ms.
useful.
Jen?
And who? And Miss Chen? Yeah. I figure I'll let the woman come back up from leave first before I summon her to a meeting, but yes. Oh, Julie, okay? All right, I'll come to you, Mr. Blunt.
This is a minor, maybe peripheral question. I just noticed it seems to be a tendency on these reports not to put dates of birth for officers. Is that just because it's irrelevant or just a little more privacy? What's the... is there a
Probably a
particular
privacy
reason?
thing.
That's protected.
No, it's protected, privacy, so.
Okay, yeah. That's what I just wondered.
Oh, I missed that.
That's a good question.
It was minor.
So what we are, the way that the city's running public meetings, we've been told they'd like us to have our formal meetings here. So I think what we need to do is sort of figure out a way to go out in the community and do it differently. So I would look at it as more of a, it would be a notice meeting. It would still be under the sunshine, but we wouldn't take any action. We could just talk with people and listen. So I'm going to see if we can figure that out for the future.
A workshop or town hall?
Yeah, or something like that. And then the other side of the coin is well, I didn't know how this meeting would go, and I wasn't sure if we were ready to go. I wasn't sure we were ready to go yet, but I want to make sure we can work it out, because honestly, with the advent of Zoom and the way it publishes, you won't be able to do it live from there. So I just want to tell you, we didn't forget, but I think we've got some good things to come up for the next meeting, if you would like. So I think they'll be fine.
So we have the September, are we doing that thing?
Yeah, we have the September, the city community fair. I was going to call it a festival.
So are we gonna sign up? Or?
Yeah, I think so, and I guess we'll do that because it's coming up. It's on my calendar. I know, September 24th. Okay, and so why don't we do that by email, and everybody can check their schedules and perhaps take a shift. And I'm in town for this one, so I can do a little time.
That's
at it.
Labor Day weekend.
No, it's the 24th.
The
Oh, I thought you said the 4th.
No,
Sorry.
No, 24th. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Oh, yeah, I have it written down.
And I believe we have a couple of vacancies, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if
He's back.
he's back, but we got more vacancies, so we got more.
Who else is on?
Well, Duncan just resigned, so we have
did
his.
he?
Yep, he had to resign. And,
He was
well,
the chair.
yeah, the other guy,
Okay.
the other guy.
And
And
Keon.
Keon's line. So we have a couple positions, we have people you'd like to recommend. And finally, I'll point out Sheila's the recipient of an award this weekend
Yes,
at the Friends of Susan B. Anthony.
congratulations.
And I can't remember, the Spirit of Susan B. Anthony Award, I think is what it's called, but congratulations, I'll see you there. So-
hopefully I will.
Yes, and so our next meeting is September 28th, and we'll probably meet here for the planned, as planned, and perhaps by then we'll have a town hall-ish kind of thing we could do out in the community with GPD separately.
Okay. I would like to thank Deborah for doing a good job
She
on
does.
keeping us up with the minutes.
She
and
does a
sending
fantastic
things to
job.
us. I'm recommending she get a raise.
Oh, get a raise, ask for the raise in the budget.
Did you hear me, Chief?
She,
Yes, ma'am.
he had that knowing nod, I saw it. All right, well, if there's no other business, we will adjourn, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.